So good morning, good afternoon everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar entitled SAP eForms for HCM at FirstEnergy, how FirstEnergy is managing the employee lifecycle using Arch FLM. We will begin in around 2 minutes just to give people a chance to join the call. If you can hear my voice but you cannot see the screen, then you will need to use the URL hyperlink in the meeting invitation that was sent to you. This will install a plugin to enable you to view the webinar slides and today's demonstration. If you experience any problem, please send a reply to the email invitation and we'll try to assist you. Today's session is being recorded and will be made available to everybody who registered afterwards. Your phone lines are muted right now and they will remain muted throughout the webinar. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A pod in the Adobe Connect window and we will address those questions at the end of the session. And so now I think people are still joining, so we'll just give them a few more seconds to join. Okay, we're 2 minutes past the hour, so now I'd like to welcome today's host, Mike Garn from SAP.
Thank you, Chris, and thank everyone for joining us on the call today. My name is Mike Garn. I am a solution engineer working for SAP out of the Phoenix, Arizona office. One of the focuses over the past few years that I've worked on has been SAP Interactive Forms by Adobe. Now, this is a great technology that allows our customers to create and deploy PDF-based electronic forms for SAP processes. Now, I've also had the pleasure of working with our business partner, Arch. Arch offers an add-on solution called Forms Lifecycle Management, or FLM, and that makes the development and management of these e-form processes much easier. Additionally, FLM also allows customers to create not just PDF forms, but HTML forms as well. Now, important to note that FLM is an SAP-endorsed business solution. Now, what this means is it's one of a handful of solutions that SAP has recognized as delivering great business value to our customers, and that SAP has rigorously tested it to ensure that it meets our strict development standards, and that we can be confident to recommend it to our customers. Now, today we're going to hear from FirstEnergy. FirstEnergy have built and deployed a series of forms that they use to address their complex forms-based processes using FLM. They will be here to share their own story and also to demonstrate some of the forms that they have developed and introduced into their environment. Now, before we get to that, I'd first like to ask Henry Blythe, the CEO of Arch, to say a few words of introduction about FLM. Henry?
Thank you, Mike, and good day, everybody. Now, we know that not everybody enjoys filling out a form as much as the folk at Arch, so we aim to make it as painless as we can and to be as helpful as possible. In fact, we've been building e-form solutions for SAP customers since 2003. In the past, this involved taking the best that Adobe could offer in terms of the user interface and marrying this with the best that SAP could offer in terms of robust process management. We introduced FLM in 2007 because SAP didn't seem to have an eForms module in its kit bag, and we needed to make the development and management of forms processes much easier. Now they are easier to build because FLM reduces development effort dramatically. They're easier to manage because it contains the built-in functionality for tracking and administering form processes that everybody needs. Easier to maintain and keep current because we separate business logic from the user interface. That is, we can swap in and out different user interfaces without changing things like the logic for populating the forms with data or moving around the enterprise or triggering SAP updates. So all these things are really important and they're based on our real-world experience. Over the past years, though, we've seen a shift with HTML forms starting to supplement the use of PDF forms, and I suspect that's really been driven by the corporate use of iPads and other mobile devices. So with FLM, as Mike mentioned, we support either PDF forms or HTML, and of course a mix of the two. With the proliferation of new user interface technologies from SAP, our vision for FLM has grown too. And so this year we'll be adding the option to integrate mobile apps. We'll support Excel-based forms and third-party form technologies. We've also worked with SAP in Waldorf, Germany on SAP UI5, and we use that extensively in our products. Everybody knows that cloud computing and big data are themes for the rest of this decade, and we're proud that FLM is now certified for HANA, so we can deliver forms in the HANA Enterprise Cloud. We're working with SAP on integrating to the HANA Cloud Portal for links to success factors, and we're investigating integration with SAP Fiori. So in terms of UI options, it feels a bit like SAP has gone from famine to feast in the blink of an eye. And so it's a very exciting and challenging time for us at Arch, but a great time for FLM. Like all SAP customers, we're trying to understand all the options and keep up with SAP's latest offering. In that way, I feel we can help our own customers determine what's best for their requirements and ensure that their products are future-proofed. Finally, although this project that you'll hear about today is all about HR, eForms play a part in many areas of SAP and indeed many industries. We're working in environmental health and safety, finance, master data management, and CRM, just to name a few. We also have customers in government, chemicals, banking, oil, drinks, retail, and more besides. So this is a technology that is widely applicable in many industries and in many different working environments, and I hope you'll find that interesting. So to today's presentation. We started working with FirstEnergy last summer. I have to say it's been a terrific project for us, and we're very proud to have been chosen by them as their partner. I'm delighted and grateful that we are joined by 4 people from FirstEnergy today: Sarah Morelli, Jody Owen, Barbara Jameson, and Jackie Dreher. I'm really pleased they're happy to share with you their own journey, which of course is ongoing. Before we start, can I just ask you, please, to make a note of any questions you might have. I think Mike mentioned it, but you can add, and Chris did, but you can add these to the Q&A section of the screen, which will be visible at the end if you don't see it now. Finally, just to thank you all for coming along today, and so now I'd like to hand over to Sarah Morelli to begin the presentation proper. Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you, Henry. Hello, everyone. Now we'd like to tell you a little bit about our experiences using Arch's FLM product to help manage our employee lifecycle process. As Henry mentioned, my name is Sarah Morelli, and I am the IT subject matter expert on this project. And on the phone with me, I have Jody Owen, who is also from IT and is the technical project manager, Barb Jameson, who is the supervisor of our HRIS department, and she is the business project manager, and Jackie Dreher, who is the HRIS lead, and she is the business subject matter expert. In this webinar, we will tell you a little bit about FirstEnergy, what our vendor selection process was like, the scope and objectives of our project, the deliverables. We will demonstrate a couple of our forms to you. We'll tell you some lessons learned and some future uses of FLM that we have yet this year, and then we'll answer any questions that you have. First of all, a little bit about FirstEnergy. We have 10 regulated distribution companies that form one of the nation's largest investor-owned electric systems. We are based on serving 6 million customers in the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic regions. Stretching from the Ohio-Indiana border to the New Jersey shore, the companies operate a vast infrastructure of more than 194,000 miles of distribution lines and are dedicated to providing customers with safe, reliable, and responsive service. FirstEnergy, which is headquartered in Akron, Ohio, operates in 6 states with 65,000 square miles of service territory. FirstEnergy's diverse generating fleet produces approximately 100 million megawatt hours of electricity annually, utilizing non-emitting nuclear, scrubbed coal, natural gas, and pump storage hydro plants. And with nearly 500 megawatts of wind power under long-term contracts, the company is one of the largest providers of renewable energy in the region. Now on to our vendor selection process. The project we are currently implementing originally started in 2010 using SAP's HCM P&F product. However, our requirements are so complex and we update so many Infotypes, both employee data, the PA data, and organizational data, the PD data, that we were unable to get it working before we had to stop work on it and start other projects. In 2013, the project was resurrected, but this time we spent a lot more time up front determining what direction we should pursue before beginning development. With the help of one of our enterprise architects, we researched our options by talking to Gartner. We talked to any other customers we could find that had, these same kind of issues. We conducted internet searches, and we came down to a list of vendors that we were interested in. So we sent them requests for proposals. We had them each complete a proof of concept on some of the hard things that we could not get working in our last attempt. And then based on all of this, we ultimately selected Arch. Based on these differentiating factors, we felt they had proven functionality, the ease of development using their product. Their product provided monitoring and auditing capabilities that we were interested in. The resource skill requirements were more easily met by us, and we thought that Arch had a lot of expertise in doing this type of work. Oops, it didn't go. There we go. So the pros. Why did we select Arch? We liked that it installed right on top of SAP. There was no additional hardware needed. It supports both PDM and HTML form technology and could ultimately deliver the form to the client based on the type of device being used, whether it's a laptop or a tablet. For our project, we used HTML forms, but for future uses, we also like the Adobe PDF supports the offline completion so that you didn't have to be connected to the network to use the forms. We like that the form configuration is portable. The form, the workflow, the logic can all be packaged and exported. We can email it to Arch. They can help us resolve any issues, and then corrections could be re-imported. We really wanted the forms to be initiated from Org Publisher, which is a product that we use to graphically display our org structure. That is very easy for clients to see what is going on, so by initiating the forms from there, it would be a much more seamless way to enter the forms. We like that Arch specializes in updating SAP via this form technology. Their cost was significantly less than some of the other products that we looked at. They had glowing customer references, and the proof of concept that they provided us proved that they were able to handle our complex business requirements. We also loved their robust technical roadmap directed towards the ease of use, enabling mobility, and also introducing the new functionality that they displayed earlier. We loved being able to display the form at each step of the process. This is an auditor's dream. And the fact that Gartner and both SAP highly recommended them was perfect for us. Now, with every pro, we had to come up with a few cons. One thing that did worry us a little bit is that they are a small UK-based company with only one U.S. citizen. We knew we were going to need help from Arch to develop these forms to meet our time frame, and we have a very strict security policy that only U.S. citizens can have access to our network. However, due to the portability capabilities with the FLM tool, this was not a problem at all. Arch could develop on their system, upload to ours. As I said before, we could download to them, send them the problems so they could help us resolve them. We've also had webinars where we work together to troubleshoot problems or to have knowledge transfer sessions. And during our peak development time, we have daily status calls with Arch to make sure we're all moving in the right direction. Another thing that worried us was the time difference between the United States and the UK. With a 5-hour time difference, we thought, what happens if we have a problem and they're not available? Again, this has not been any problem. Arch has been very responsive to all emails, even late into their evening. And then when we come in the next day, all of the problems are already resolved and our questions are answered. As I said before, they're extremely responsive. We thought, well, there's no form design tool, specifically developed by Arch. That's all right. We use Adobe Lifecycle Designer for the PDF-based forms, and we use the Visual Studio for the HTML forms. And the dashboard for the administrators to monitor the forms is a little bit generic, but it has to be because every company would want something different on the dashboard. So we are going to develop some additional reports to supplement this. So it's not really a con, but we put it down there just to let you know that. And now I am going to turn the presentation over to Barb Jameson, who is the Business Project Manager.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to review the scope and the objectives of the project. FirstEnergy, we have over 15,000 employees working in 12 different companies. We have over 20 unions, and our employees work out of 5 states. Our HRIS group keys over 40,000 employee and org changes into SAP each year. So while we're not a global company, from an organization and payroll perspective, we are fairly complex. We do lots of reorganizations and changes each year. So our current method for managing employee changes right now is through a Lotus Notes database called the Personal Action Form, or PASS database. FirstEnergy recently made a technology change away from Lotus Notes databases to Microsoft Projects, so we needed to find a complete replacement of our PASS database, and we wanted something that had automated forms, an automated forms process that would directly update SAP, and we wanted to make sure we had automatic workflows built in. We also wanted all employee job-related changes to be entered via forms. Everybody had to come in from an employee change perspective the same way. We also wanted to create and maintain our position and org data using forms and automatic update into SAP. So that was another scope requirement. We currently use e-recruiting for our recruiting system, and we wanted to streamline the process that we use with e-recruiting for our new hires and rehires. And as Sarah mentioned before, we do use Org Publisher heavily within FirstEnergy. People are comfortable with it, and we wanted them to be able to launch the forms using Org Publisher. And lastly, we wanted to make sure our management had the ability to approve the forms through their iPads or smartphones. So that was our project scope. As for project objectives, we wanted to make sure we had a consistent process, that all our employee data changes are being entered the same way, and that they all had workflows and escalations built in to keep the process moving. We didn't want to have people to have to hunt down a form or track down somebody and see why they didn't approve like a manager didn't approve a promotion. This way, if something doesn't get done right away, it'll escalate up to the next level within the time frames you build into the process. We wanted to make sure we increased our efficiency and accuracy. Like we had mentioned before, our current database is not integrated with SAP, so the data is not always up to date, which can cause problems. We don't currently have SAP edits built into the current process, so there are no logical drop-downs for selection. And currently, right now, we have no automatic updates to SAP. First, the field HR keys the change into our PASS database, and then the HRIS employees, they have to actually take that form and then rekey it into SAP. We also wanted to reduce the time and effort. As I mentioned before, we have 40,000 employee changes annually, new hires, rehires, transfers, promotions. Through this process, we're going to be able to reduce headcount from 4 people to 3. We want to use SAP workflow for approvals based on the org structure. We also need the built-in email notifications to eliminate the manual effort and the chance of our HR folks forgetting to send emails out. And we also wanted to be able to view all changes, approvals, each step of the way for auditing requirements. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, who's going to talk about our project deliverables, and she's also going to give us a couple forms demonstrations.
Okay. Hi, and thank you, Barbara. Okay, so as far as our project deliverable, we wanted to be able to replace our current process for gathering employee job changes from throughout the organization and entering those changes into SAP using a fully integrated form solution. The current application had to be replaced in its entirety, so we were basically looking for a big bang approach. As indicated on the slide, based on workshops, we determined that we needed 8 distinct forms. These forms would be used for specific changes, and the forms are designed to only require the data needed to complete that specific action. For example, the change location mail stop form is very simple and only requires an effective date and the selection of the new location and its associated mail stop. This is a big improvement over the notes database we currently use, which is basically one large form without any logic to help guide the business on how or what needs to be completed for any given action. We now have a hire-rehire form, which integrates to our e-recruiting system. The integration eliminates the need to double key information that is provided in the e-recruiting module, as it now brings that data systematically onto this form. For example, the employee name and address populates once the candidate ID is entered. We have a specific separation form, which is used to separate an employee. We have a transfer form, which is used when an employee is moving from one position to another. In our environment, there is a one-to-one relationship between our employees and their position. Each position represents a unique spot within our organization. So if an employee working in HR today is taking a new job within the accounting function, that person would transfer from their current HR position to a new position in accounting, and this is the form that they would use. Change position pay is what I like to call our super form, and probably the most complex form we are creating. It is used for updating the attributes of an existing position, with or without an employee. It is used for updating the pay of an employee, or it can be used for a combination of the two. So, as an example, we can have a vacant position that we want to relocate from a location in New Jersey to a location in Ohio. We would use this form to simply update the location attribute on the position. We can also use this form simply to process an employee pay increase. The employee is doing wonderfully in their current job, and based on a recent review, it was decided that they deserved a pay increase, and this form would be used simply to process the pay change. An example of the combination of both is the employee is moving from one step of the job family to another with a coinciding pay change. So, for example, a junior accountant moving to a full accountant job title along with a pay increase. There would be no other change to their position, and in this scenario, the form would be used to update the job on the position and also update the employee's pay. The change location mail stop allows us to move an employee from one location to another. We also have a create position form, and that's one of the forms I will be demonstrating, and this is used when a new position needs to be established. For example, the payroll department is adding staff to their current headcount. Along with that, we also have a create org unit form, which is often used when a new department is being established. And since we do need to update org units from time to time, we have a change org unit form as well, which would allow us to do simple renames or even realignments of current org units. These forms, I think, are very intuitive and simple to use. They leverage SAP data and contain drop-downs based on SAP data, making them logical and helping to minimize errors during the creation of the form. In addition to their ease of use, we have been able to create workflows for approvals and email notifications. Certain forms will require management approvals, and these will be sent systematically. Another example is when we begin the termination process. Now, at its very early stages, an email is sent to payroll so that they may begin to prepare for the employee's final pay, a feature that payroll really appreciates. And depending on the form, various emails will be generated, such as to the employee's supervisor, to the benefit department, or our regional HR department, basically to any and all groups identified during our workshops as having a vested interest in the various employee job changes. And with that, I'm going to move over to the demonstration. And what I will be doing here is demonstrating two forms. I will be creating a position and an employee transfer. The plan is to use the FLM Portal to launch the Create Position form, as that is not yet linked up in our Org Publisher environment. Using Org Publisher, I will plan to demonstrate an employee transfer. Both of these systems are development systems. They are working very well today, so I'm not anticipating any problems. If we run into any issues, however, we'll just adjust and accommodate to be able to demonstrate the forms. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move into sharing my information. It'll just take a couple of seconds to appear on your screens, and what you should be seeing now is the FLM Portal. Can I get confirmation that you're seeing this, Sarah?
It's good, Jackie.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is our version of the FLM Portal, and the intent basically is that all users are going to render the forms through Org Publisher, and we really do not plan on rolling this out to the end users. However, it is one way to access the forms, and it is also where you would go to get to a form that has been saved as draft. So from here, what I'm going to do is actually select the Create Position, and the form will open up. So first off, the look and feel of all the forms is very consistent, something that was very important to us. As you notice, there are 3 tabs at the top of the form. The first tab is the actual form itself. The second tab, which is an awesome feature, is where you can actually place attachments. So for example, you're hiring a new employee, you can attach their start letter, you can attach any documentations around signing bonuses or vacation exceptions. A very, very nice feature. And here, you have the Historical Events tab. And this allows you to track the form through its various stages, from its initial stage, which is where I am now, to its actual completion. One of the things that we really liked as the auditors in our company are going to be able to always see what was going on. Now going back to the form itself, we also designed the form to look and feel pretty consistent. At the top of each form, there is a description area with helpful notes describing when to use the form and some other helpful hints that may make processing the form a little bit easier. And the area directly below that is the initial entry field, and for the most part, we've kept that pretty consistent too. So again, in this example, I'm going to be adding a position. I'm going to be adding that position in the payroll department. And often here at FirstEnergy, when we add a position to an existing department, we are able to mirror or copy an existing position. So again, I will be creating the position, and I will be using an existing position to copy. And what you will see is when I use the copy feature, all existing attributes on the pre-existing position will populate on the form with the ability to update attributes as necessary. Now, because I'm coming in directly from the portal, I am going to be required to enter a couple more fields than what I would have to do if I was coming in through Org Publisher. But the starting point on every form is the effective date, and as you can see, you have a nice little date picker. Here, because again, I'm not coming in through Org Publisher, I will have to key in the org unit that this position is being created in. In this case, 62121992 is the payroll department. I do have a position that is closely mirroring the position I'm going to be creating, so I will be keying that number in, again, mostly because I am not coming in through Org Publisher. And as Barbara mentioned, we have 12 companies, and we do need to identify which company this position belongs to. But as you can see, because this is logically linked to SAP, I have a very nice drop-down, and I can very easily find that this position is going into our FirstEnergy service company, otherwise known as SC00. There is a Get Details button. When I press the Get Details button, the form actually goes out into the world of SAP, and based on the effective date, will pull back data based on the position that I'm copying as of 3/23. The position details come up, and as you can see, it's pre-populated with a lot of details, and that's because I had a starting point. Now, if this position is exactly the way I want it to be, I don't really need to do anything else to it. However, in this case, I can decide that I really want this position to only be a part-time position. Again, a very nice drop-down. I can select that this position is now part-time. I am actually going to hire this person as a senior admin assistant rather than as an advanced, and I can do a nice little job search with a partial listing of the title and hit search, and as you can see, I come back with 2 records found. And what you will see is in this case, I see 2 jobs, as we have 2 distinct pay rates due to geographic location. So what I need to do is basically select the correct one. This job's not in New Jersey, so I will select the second one. And now I just simply need to continue reviewing those fields that need to be populated. What I like is anything that's required has a little red asterisk. So as I go through the form, I see, yep, okay, I'm good. The job title's right. It's a regular part-time. It will continue to be in Johnstown. Here at FirstEnergy, we do drug and alcohol testing randomly, and we do assign people to pools. In this case, I need to identify which pool this employee will belong to. And I am going to say, in this case, that no, we do not need to drug test them randomly. I will select none. And an additional question that we need to know is whether or not this position is going to be the chief or the head of the department that it's being created in. And I'm going to leave it as no. The next section on the form that you will see, I'm going to collapse this a little bit, is the send additional email notification. And this actually allows an additional email to be sent to someone outside the normal workflow. So we actually had an executive assistant who wanted the ability to let her VP know of all changes within that department. Since he was not necessarily in the established workflow, this notification would allow him to continue being notified of any changes. So we've embedded this additional email notification on all of our forms. The next section that the user would be responsible for, really the very final section, is the comments. And the comment section is where anyone who is touching this form can add comments as needed. Any comments entered will always appear at every step of the form process, and the comment includes the identity of the person who added that comment. Okay. As I was going through the form, I skipped through the area labeled HRIS only. We here at FirstEnergy have decided that part of our process would involve all forms upon submission coming to the HRIS area. And the reason for that is that we feel there are some key fields that we need to be able to gather, but that the HRIS area, the HRIS admin group, would be best positioned to complete. So again, the form has been submitted. It comes to the HRIS section, and they would simply come down and select the proper indicators. This is not a director position. We know this position is in Pennsylvania. Again, I have a drop-down of all the states. I enter the letter P, skip right down to Pennsylvania, and that field's filled out. Workers' comp codes, it's a clerical job. The LSO profile, it's a way for us to manage our internal security. But basically, the end user would never have to worry about the HRIS section. It's basically the position information, the position details, and an additional email if they would like, and some comments, and at this point, they'd be able to do the submit. And they are done with that form. I really, really like this form because really, by being able to use an existing position, I've saved quite a bit of time in completing this form. The next form that I wanted to demonstrate is actually doing an employee transfer, and I'm going to be doing that from our org chart. And again, Sarah, we're seeing the org chart okay?
Yep, it's looking good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be filling a position with another employee. I am going to be moving Patty, who's a supervisor in the she's a regional supervisor, to a position in our finance as a supervisor within the finance department. So the first thing I do when I come out to Org Publisher is I find the vacant position. In this case, it's this supervisor position here. And from the profile view, which is, again, this is our org charting tool, I simply click on the position number. And as you can see, from this place in org chart, I can do a transfer, I can do a hire, or I can change the attributes on that position. I'm doing a transfer. I click on the transfer button, and the form will begin to render. One of the first things you'll see when the form comes up is that it really does look a lot like the other form that I just showed you. You've got the first tab, which is the form. You've got the attachment tab, and you also have the historical events tab. You still have the form description, with the helpful notes. Now here, you can see the new position ID came in. I still need to generate the effective date. I happen to like March 23rd. The employee I'm moving, Patty, her SAP number is 938. And I do have to give a reason for why I am moving this person, and it is one supervisor to another, but it is a promotion because the finance supervisor job is a little bit higher rated. Again, I filled out the initial entry. I'm going to get the details. And now what you will see on the left-hand side in the section labeled Work Information is all of Patty's current data before moving to her new position. So we can see where she was, and we can see where she's going. All the attributes on the right-hand side are coming over from SAP because that is what exists on that position as of 3/23. Most of the fields are grayed out or yellowed out in our case. We wanted it to be very noticeable. Those are not updatable. But at the bottom, you will see a couple of entry fields that are editable because they're more closely related to the person than to the position. I can change the employee subgroup from regular full-time to part-time or any of the other statuses. Again, we have a nice drop-down. HR coordinator, as mentioned, we have over 12 companies. Depending on where the position resides, their HR coordinator has to be identified just so that we get a consistency of which area is more closely responsible for that employee. In this case, she used to be linked to JCP&L. This is a corporate finance position, so I'm going to change her HR coordinator code. Her payroll area, X4 is basically our standard payroll area for exempt people, but we do have other payroll areas depending on the type of work the employee is doing. In this case, I really don't need to change that. Again, our drug and alcohol pool, we have to, again, identify which pool she would go into. In this case, I'm going to say yes, she does belong to one of the pools. And now, another drop-down that we have, this position's in Pennsylvania, it's in Reading. We have a nice list of mail stops. And mail stops are basically the identification of where that person is residing in that particular building. So I'm just going to put her at RREAP 17. And basically, all the information for the new position she's going into has been completed. The next section you will see is our salary and planned working time. Again, on the left is where she's coming from. On the right is where she's going. You'll see, the 6A E1 0498. That's the attributes that you find on the job, and it's our way of tracking the compensation value of each job that we have. In this case, there's a standard rate. The job is worth about $96,000. She's new to the job. I'm going to say we're going to pay her $92,500. We pay biweekly, so the amount that she will be paid biweekly is showing in the calculated biweekly rate. Again, the email address, optional. If you want to send an email to someone outside of the normal workflow, simply key in an SAP number. In this case, what I'm going to do is decide that maybe my friend over there, Jody, should be getting an email, and I'm just simply going to put in her SAP number, and as you can see, it goes back and it validates that Jody is the person getting the email. And now you would come down as a user to the comments section, and you could put in any comments that you would want. And again, once you have submitted the form, it would come to the HRIS group. We would be the ones seeing the HRIS section, and we would come in here and we would add the additional fields. Activity types, it's a way for us to gather costing information. Work center, work contract, it's basically because we have 20-plus unions and different work contracts, and we could add the person's holiday hours at this point. But basically, you are now done and able to submit the form. So basically, that's the end of my demo, but I hope that you can appreciate how easy these forms are to use. The layout, I think, is simple. The use of SAP proper to create the forms and develop good drop-downs really ensures a nice, clean process. Going from our standalone notes database to this is absolutely a wonderful process for us, and one that we're so glad we're able to use. And with that, I am going to be turning the presentation back to, well, turning it over to Jody. I don't think she's spoken yet. And hopefully at this point, we can get the presentation slides back up. So Jody, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jackie, and hello, everyone. Next, we wanted to share with you some of the lessons we've learned while implementing this project. First, we highly recommend doing a proof of concept during the vendor selection process. This gave us the opportunity to submit some challenging business cases to the vendors, allowing them to respond with a solution. It was very beneficial for us to see some of our complex business requirements come to life in such a short period of time. Secondly, ARCH was able to develop and implement 3 of our hardest forms in less than 3 months. This enabled us to roll these forms out to a small HR group to use in production prior to rolling it out to the remainder of the company. Currently, this small group is still using Lotus Notes to track the personnel changes, but instead of manually keying the data into SAP, they are using the FLM forms to post to SAP, essentially validating the forms are working in production. Since December, we have implemented 4 more forms for HR to use in production. We plan on rolling this process out to the rest of the company in June. And as many of you know, we can run into unique data scenarios in production that are hard to duplicate with test data. Thus, this has proved to be very valuable to us. It has given us the opportunity to fix minor bugs before rolling it out enterprise-wide. We also wanted to mention to not underestimate the time it will take to gather business requirements and develop the technical blueprints. Even though we felt very prepared with our documentation, it was helpful to use ARCH's template for blueprinting. It is designed to step a programmer through the FLM process, enabling them to develop the forms more quickly. And finally, our largest gap was the lack of FE JavaScript and HTML experience on our technical project team. A few of us took a 2-day course to learn HTML and JavaScript. However, this is still our greatest challenge due to our lack of knowledge in this area. Should you choose to develop HTML forms internally, we highly recommend to have JavaScript, HTML, and ABAP developers on your project team to make it even more successful. FLM is considered an enterprise-wide solution at FirstEnergy. We have 2 additional non-HR projects in scope for 2014. The facilities project is also a Lotus Notes database that needs to be replaced. This project includes the creation of 2 FLM forms to support move and work requests. Once the requester fills out the form, an email will be sent to the facilities group informing them of this request. Additional fields will then be available to facilities to update and will ultimately result in SAP notification in a work order. Once facilities has worked the request and completed the work order, they will complete the form, resulting in final notifications to the requester and other appropriate recipients. This project is currently scheduled to begin in April, and it will go live in August. Our second project is under the financial umbrella and will result in new FI master data forms. There will be 3 FLM forms used to manage and document the necessary steps to request and establish new cost centers, work orders, and general ledger accounts as defined in the financial policies and procedures here at FirstEnergy. The requests will go to general accounting for review, and they have the authority to decline the requests that are not aligned with their procedures. Any exceptions must be approved by the Financial Master Data Governance Committee. Once approved, final notifications will be sent to the requester as well as general accounting. There are also 3 additional forms that will be used to request changes to these FI master data objects. This project is scheduled to kick off in August and will go live in December. So in summary, by the end of 2014, we will have implemented FLM solutions in the SAP HR module, the SAP Finance module, and the SAP Plant Maintenance module to support our facilities department. This concludes our presentation on how FirstEnergy uses FLM. We are now ready to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much indeed. That's really great and a very, very impressive presentation. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to, I've got questions coming in, which is great, and I'm going to pass them to other members of the cast to answer. What we're going to start off with, I think, is a question about workflow. So people are asking about workflow. Can you just explain a little bit about the workflow behind the form processes? And I think also, forgive me, everybody, I'll just combine some of the questions. There's also a question about the updates to SAP. So how does the transfer actually get completed? And Chris, could you address that, please? Chris Scott.
Yeah, Henry, I was actually hoping that that Sarah would explain a little bit.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah, maybe Sarah could then.
The process is pretty complex.
Oh, okay. In that case, Sarah would be the best person. Yeah, okay. Sarah, would you mind? Would you mind, Sarah? I dropped you in it there.
That's all right. I'll give it my best shot here, and Chris can help me out as he needs to. This does not use SAP's workflow. It uses Arch's workflow that is delivered, and they have configurations set up where we can actually go in and tell who gets what notification when, and what else can I say? Notifications is when, and escalations are also handled in the configuration. Then we also have, Arch also delivers user exits that can be used for anything, including the routing and the escalations, as well as the posting. A lot of the posting for HR itself is also done through configuration tables, and then if we need any additional logic incorporated that can't be done on there, we can use that user exits for that as well. So that's one reason we really liked the Arch tool, is we think it is very powerful, and it gives us a lot of places to control what is happening and when it is happening.
Thank you very much. There's a question about performance, which I'll say a few words about, and then perhaps somebody from FirstEnergy could join in. A couple of people have asked about the performance of Adobe Forms. That the performance they're seeing from your demonstration, FirstEnergy, is very high. I expect for a demonstration for a development system, particularly compared to the experience with Adobe Forms. First thing to say is, of course, Adobe Forms do more than HTML in the sense they're more like an app. So there's more going on. So in terms of the time it takes to produce the first form, that can be longer. But it may be that there are just things in your setup that in individual not FirstEnergy elsewhere in the customers asking the question is making it slow, and we can look at that. And there are things in FLM that do help PDF forms render more quickly. But in general, our experience is that HTML forms render more quickly than PDF forms because there's less going on, really. It's a quicker process for us to render. I don't know whether you've got any comments on that, FirstEnergy, just from your experience, because you've used both technologies, at least to some extent, whether your experience of performance is of interest to people. I think it probably would be.
Yeah, no, we did notice a difference between what we were trying to do last time with the Adobe Forms, that this is much faster. And keep in mind, too, what you are seeing is our development system, which is even slower than our production systems. And Jackie can probably tell you that the forms are working even faster than this in production. Now, we haven't had a lot of users signed on at one time yet, since we haven't opened it up to the rest of the field, but we don't foresee any problems with it.
Right. Thank you. There's a question about FLM working with HCM processes and forms, and I think I'll answer that one since it's an SAP type question. Really, the two are alternates. So FLM is a generic, although we're using it here in HCM, and I suppose that FirstEnergy had commented on that they're going to use FLM elsewhere. FLM is a generic forms capability, so we can work in any module. HCM processing forms is like an alternate way of working that is PDF-based, I believe, and maybe it uses now WebDyn Pro. So we have a number of advantages over that, apart from the generic capability, but they don't work together. They are alternates, so that would be the answer to that question. I've also been asked, is FLM sold by SAP? It's co-marketed by SAP, so it's not sold by. We work with SAP to sell it, but it's bought from Arch. So, but SAP, as Mike mentioned, endorses the product and collaborates with us. I've got a question come in about Org Publisher. This is definitely one for FirstEnergy, because I certainly don't know a lot about Org Publisher. Other than launching forms with Org Publisher, what options are there to launch the forms? And also, does the form, when it's completed its cycle, does it update Org Publisher directly? Could you answer that, please, FirstEnergy? What about other options other than Org Publisher, and also does the Org Publisher get updated automatically?
Org Publisher is updated as soon as SAP is updated, because it is just a way to look at SAP graphically. So once the forms are posted to production to SAP, Org Publisher will reflect that change. The way we are linking to the forms from Org Publisher is just through a URL. So you could probably link to all kind of other stuff with the URL as well, from other things into the forms other than Org Publisher. And I guess I wanted to say, too, I forgot to say before when you were asking about the posting, that the postings are done, once you've submitted the form and HRIS has approved it, we are going to have jobs set up that run, every so often, whether it's every hour, every 5 minutes or whatever, that go out there and look for forms that are ready for posting. And if they find them, then that's when it automatically updates SAP. If it encounters errors, it flags the errors. HRIS gets an email notification that there was an error. So then they would go look at the form itself. So it's going to be a totally, running jobs that actually post the data right to SAP once HRIS has said it's good to go. Yeah.
Yes, that's a good point, isn't it? That a key part of what FLM does is it integrates with SAP, obviously, for both pre-population and for posting data that's been completed, and indeed works with non-SAP systems as well. So we've got a very powerful capability that we're using in SAP to integrate with non-SAP systems, so we're agnostic about that, but certainly the integration with SAP is very tight. Please keep asking your questions. I'll do my best to distribute them as best I can. There's a question about, do I need a particular SAP enhancement pack to use FLM? So the answer is no, we're independent of SAP enhancement packs. Chris, do you have anything to add to that? And indeed, there's a question about.
No, we can work with very old versions of HR if necessary, so that we're not reliant on any particular enhancement pack. There was another question there about what support level of FLM FirstEnergy are on. From Joyce. Hello, Joyce. They're on 295 Service Pack 4. And which does include the new multi-UI FLM portal, which is the SAP UI5 based portal, but in fact they're not using that. They're using the old portal that is BSP based. That's the one you saw in the demo there. So the new portal is available to them, but they've not gone with that yet.
Just to remind everybody, you can ask questions in the Q&A pod, and we'll address them as best we can. Any more questions at this time? There's one more from Joyce, who's asked, do we have the FLM for HR framework installed? This is a component that we have built up to deal with some of the specialist areas of HR and to make the form creation process even faster. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question, but Chris, perhaps that's one you could answer?
Well, it's one I can even answer.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I do apologize, FirstEnergy. I do apologize. I didn't know whether you...
Yes, we do have that implemented, yes. Right, and it has been very useful dealing with the HR Infotypes, and that is one way we can do pre-population of fields on the forms, much easier just through the configuration tables, as well as tell how we want stuff to be posted, what Infotypes we want the data posted to. So that is a very easy way to do it, and as I said before, if there's something we need in addition to what's done through the config table there, we can do it through user exits.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And actually, it's just worth saying, some of those forms, they're updating more than 40 different Infotypes, and there's a mixture of insertions, copy, deletions. There's also a mixture of PA and PD. So they're very, very complex updates that are going on. And also some of those forms are kind of dynamically spawning different numbers of email notifications depending upon what was changed. So sometimes the payroll department gets informed about a change, sometimes another department. So there is we really just saw the form. Actually, a lot of the complexity is in the entire process, not just the form template.
I'm just going to address another question, but I'd also like to say what we'll do is we'll capture all these questions and we'll produce answers for them. So you will get, if you haven't had your question answered on this session, we will distribute answers to all the questions that have been put. So please don't be concerned if we don't answer it right now. I had a question about reporting, which is, can you report nightly on how many forms or what data was changed for audit purposes? So again, Chris and FirstEnergy, would you like to talk about reporting and audit, which I think is hopefully a strong part of what the project and what we deliver?
So I'll go first. Yeah. So the answer is yes. Basically, because really the difference between the FLM approach and some of the other approaches out there is that in an FLM world, the form is an object in SAP that is, and so it's got a unique number. We can see it as a document inside the system. We can see all the fields that are changed inside the system. So we can so there's a bunch of standard reports on how many forms are out there, the work in progress, an administration dashboard to help you move a form from one person to another in the organization. And of course, since the data is there, if we've not delivered the right report, then you can build your own reports on top. And I think, Sarah, you're considering building some of your own reports.
Yeah, we only have identified one new report so far, and that is one that we want to roll out to all the people that are actually entering data onto the forms, so that they can see easily what they've entered, if they've entered something for a particular organization, if they've entered something for a particular person, so that they can watch the status of their own forms in a much easier way than the dashboard. So far, that is the only report we've identified that we need, other than what the ones that Arch delivers.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. We're drawing towards the end of our time, the hour. I've just put up contact details for myself and for Mike, and we also like to, because there's been obviously a lot of, I think there's a lot of potential interest in how we got to this point. So we're making an offer that we're very happy to set up, and we will be setting up a 1-hour technical briefing to explain how these forms are built in FLM, so to go a level of detail, as it were, under the covers and explain to you all how that happens. So we'll follow up and contact you all with that offer and explain the date and how we'll do it, but it'll be a similar format today, but it'll be much more down in amongst how we get things done and how we get these forms built. So perhaps I could just close by thanking you all for coming to this webinar today. We really appreciate your interest in our products and our projects, and also a special thank you to FirstEnergy, who have been very generous with their time, and to be candid, have been a fantastic company to work with. We've thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, and I'm sure we've got a lot more work to do together. So I think at this point we'll close.